What's happening, YouTube? Welcome back to An American in Poland. I'm Kenny. Glad to have you here. So I'm sure that title, while it might be a little spicy, I think it's kind of necessary to talk about what we're talking about today. And I want to make sure that people realize I'm not saying don't come to Poland if you don't do these things. What I'm saying is there are some cultural differences in Poland that as a visitor, you might want to pay attention to and just kind of think about. So kind of the first big thing that I've seen and that I've heard locals talk about is, well, it's the two big ones. It's Americans and it's Brits. Specifically the Brits on this one, because they tend to be the most obnoxious tourists. That being said, the Americans have their faults too. I've definitely noticed it in a few of the different cities that I visited. One thing that both Americans and Brits are known for is being loud. You know, when you walk by a group of guys hanging out, having breakfast at a cafe after a hard night on a stag, they're all screaming and swearing and just being generally obnoxious. And, you know, it's just not appreciated. One thing I have noticed here in Poland is that when people are in public, they're generally pretty quiet, even the teenagers. You know, sure, if kids are sitting around at, you know, McDonald's, they're laughing and joking with their friends, you know, that's one thing. But like when you see people walking down the streets and stuff like that, they're generally pretty respectful of other people's kind of space and sensibilities, I guess. And they tend to be pretty quiet. Now, I am going to say something directly to the Americans, and this specifically goes to our American troops here in Poland. Now, I was in the military myself, so I have seen this from both sides. One thing that we really need to be conscious of is our language. You don't notice it because being in the military, F-bombs are kind of used every other word. But when you're out representing yourself in a foreign country like you are here in Poland, it just makes you look ignorant, makes you look stupid. So just kind of be cognizant of that. Also, watch your volume. You know, Americans are guilty of it as well. One thing that you might notice, even if you are being, you know, respectful and quiet, is what I like to call the Polish stare. So this is a stereotype about Poland, that nobody smiles. And I hate to admit it, but even me being here, I've noticed that I've kind of picked up the Polish stare in public. And it's not a negative thing. People aren't like just, you know, staring you down, mean mugging you to be angry or mean. It's just kind of the social norm. People don't just walk around smiling all the time like they do in England or in the United States. I don't think there's anything negative about it. It's just something unique. And, you know, I'm not trying to offend Polish people, but this is something that most tourists, when they come here, notice. So I'm not all alone on this one. Now, another thing is when you come to Poland, if, you know, you make friends with somebody and, you know, they invite you over to their house, one thing to think about is, you know, bringing them some kind of a small gift. It doesn't have to be anything extravagant, but even with my friends now, you know, when we go to each other's houses, like I go to one friend's house and he always is like, oh, hey, let me get you some honey because he keeps bees. Or, you know, I'll bring cake or pies or, you know, goodies or something like that. It's just kind of a way of exchanging niceties. Like I said, it doesn't have to be, you know, something that like, you know, coffee mug or whatever it can be. But, you know, a simple cake or something like that is pretty common when you're visiting someone's house. And that's something that you don't necessarily see in the United States. Now, one thing that I learned is that casual conversation can be very different here from the United States. One way that Americans kind of define themselves is by their work. And so when you're first meeting somebody, it's very common to say, hey, what do you do for work? And that's not common here. And Polish people find it kind of intrusive. And they'll dance around a little bit. And I didn't know this when I first moved here, and it wasn't until my girlfriend told me, hey, that's not a question you really ask. Before I recognized that it was even a problem, because it is like one of the first questions that you ask in the United States when you're meeting somebody new. Now, I know for a lot of folks, if they're traveling to Europe for the first time, one thing they want to think about is clothing and fashion. Because they don't want to stand out. They want to, kind of blend in with the scenery around them, and they don't want to be that obnoxious American wearing the Hawaiian shirt, flip-flops, and shorts. But I will say here in Poland is that casual attire tends to be very similar to casual attire in the United States. Now, you won't see pants sag down around their butts. You don't see a lot of oversized, like clothing, that kind of thing. Most of the time, people just wear normal clothes that, fit well to their body. They're not wearing stuff that's super skin tight, but they're not wearing, they're not a size small wearing a XXX. So, if you're coming here, don't do anything crazy special. It's not necessary. Polish people dress pretty much exactly like, the rest of the West dresses. It's pretty normal. One big thing that you can do when coming here for the first time is try the language. I've noticed when I was going to the Christmas markets and stuff that people, like especially English speakers, don't even put in any effort. They don't start with a dzień dobry. They don't say thank you. They don't, nothing. They just go straight in speaking English. And I know that part of this is because they're afraid that they'll get too deep. But there are some simple phrases that you can learn that'll be a huge help. And it kind of makes the Polish people feel like you appreciate being here. So the first one is dzień dobry. And this is something that you'll say if you're going into a smaller shop. Right when you walk in, I've noticed that most people here will say dzień dobry, just to kind of let the shop owner know that you're there. The next big phrase to know is poproszę, which means kind of like please. It's like you would say, I would like a Coke, please. And you'd say, jedną Coca-Cola poproszę. And which means one Coca-Cola, please. So that's something to think about. Dziękuję, thank you. Those three simple phrases can go a long way while you're here in Poland. You can learn a phrase like przepraszam, nie mówię po polsku, mówię po angielsku, which gets a little bit more into the weeds. And if you're going to be here for a long time, or a longer time, that might be something to think about. But that basically means, I'm sorry, I don't speak Polish. Do you speak English? And like I said, that's not necessary if you're just coming on vacation. Just start with the simples. Hello, thank you, please, and go from there. Another big thing that I want to talk about for folks visiting here is being respectful when visiting the churches. Watch for when services are happening and try to avoid interrupting the services by going in and taking pictures and doing this and that. It's not respectful. I've noticed tourists just kind of walking in and wandering around while people are there, having funerals or, or even just church service in general. So That's something to think about. Just be respectful. Pay attention as to what's going around you and whether you would want pictures taken of you while you're in that position. I even go so far as, if in the smaller churches, if some folks are in there praying, I'll wait until they're finished before I even think to take pictures. So that's something to think about. Now, another thing that's a little different here is people will invite you out for coffee or tea, and that's exactly what they mean. Doesn't matter the time of year, whether it's summer, whether it's winter, hot beverages are the go-to when you're visiting with your friends. And this can go as far as even if you're having, say, like the plumber or electrician come to your house, be prepared to offer them coffee or tea because it's a general nicety, and in some cases it's just kind of expected. It's a cultural norm. Soda's not a big thing when you're talking about folks visiting. It's coffee or it's tea. So keep those things on hand, and if you're out here on vacation and someone asks you out to coffee or tea, just know that's exactly what it is. Another big thing is being cautious to not talk about how cheap it is in Poland, because it is kind of offensive. Yes, the exchange rate is great for Americans. It's $4 or $1 for 4 zloty. But you have to look at the zloty for the Polish people as a dollar. So for them, one of the big sayings here is, Eastern wages with Western prices. And that's kind of a difficult line to toe. So, when you're talking with folks you first meet here in Poland, just avoid talking about exchange rates and talking about how cheap it is to be in Poland. Now, one thing I want to make sure that everybody is clear of is that I'm not trying to be too hard on one group or another, or, say that, Polish traditions are weird or that all tourists are bad. I'm not saying that. This video has a very specific purpose, and that's just to help folks that are coming to Poland for the first time, for one, to be respectful of Polish culture, and for two, make life easier for them while navigating their way throughout Poland. Anyways, if you guys have enjoyed this video, if you want to see more of my content, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, make sure you got notifications turned on, and you'll be the first to be notified when new content comes out. Anyways, na razie, dziękuję bardzo, and we'll see you guys soon next time right here on An American in Poland.